So everyone wants to be recognized. Everyone wants to feel important. And this desire to feel important and to feel recognized is very, very strong in all of us. Now, how can we make people feel important about their own selves? One of the tricks is to listen to them, is to listen to what they are actually trying to say. Listen intently to the other person. And we'll be seeing, right, how to listen to the other person, how to make sure that we listen sincerely to the other person. The second thing which is very much important to make people feel important is to applaud and to compliment them. So if they say something which feels good to you, which feels nice to you, take a pause and compliment the other person. Don't hesitate in complimenting the other person. Do applaud them for whatever good which you actually find in them. Take a chance to actually talk about the good things that they have done in their life. Compliment them. So complimenting the other person is so very important to make the other person feel important. So the first thing was listening to the person, listening sincerely to the person, not for the sake of listening. The second thing is complimenting them or applauding them for whatever they are and whatever good things that they have done. The third thing, which is very important, is to use their names while you're addressing them. So let us suppose you're talking to some person named as Rohit. So keep on, once you're asking some question, use his name. Okay, Rohit, so how did you crack this interview? Okay, Rohit, so how has been your work-life balance like? So more you use the name, what happens is that the other person feels important. The other person feels that something is being addressed to him and he or she starts feeling important. So using names while you're talking to the other person does a lot of help to make sure that you are making the other person feel important. The fourth thing, which is very important, is while you are answering to somebody's questions or while you are putting up your argument to the other person, take a pause. Don't just go forward to make your argument without taking a pause, because if you don't take a pause, it gives an indication to the other person that you were not listening to him or her. You were just waiting for your chance to revert. So let us suppose the other person who was talking before you talks about his points, talk about her points. After he or she has completed, take a small pause before you revert, because that makes the other person feel that you have listened to them. You have given a thought to all the points that they were actually talking about. And this actually makes them feel important. So let us suppose, somebody is talking about how did he crack an interview, and you had a question in your mind, or you wanted to make a counter argument, let us suppose. So don't make it right away. Let the person speak, listen to him or her intently, applaud him, compliment him for whatever good things he or she must have told. That can be done by nodding your head as well, which is another concept which we'll be covering in just afterwards. And once they have stopped speaking, once they have put up their points, give a small pause and then start speaking up, because that gives an indication to the other person that you have been listening to them. You actually respect what they have actually spoken. And this makes the other person feels important. And this really works out. The other important thing is stop using the word I, me, etc. Start using words like you, your, etc. inside your conversation. Because once you do that, you are actually talking about the other person. And as we already know, the other person wants to talk more about their own selves. Every person inside this world wants to talk, gives the most importance to their own self. So once you start using the word you, your, etc., the other person starts to feel that something has been talked about myself, and he or she feels very important. So try to minimize the use of word I, me, etc. use you, your, etc. to make the conversation more good and to make sure that the other person feels important about himself or herself. In short, talk about the other person or make the other person talk about himself or herself. Now, the other important thing is to acknowledge the people who have been waiting to meet you. So let us suppose, you go to your office and you reached your office at 10 o'clock, but there was a person who was there waiting for you since 9:30. So the time you meet him, the first thing is that you should acknowledge that, thank you for waiting for me. Thank you, I got late. You had to wait for me. So acknowledge the person, who has been waiting to meet you. Let us suppose, you're going into a conference and, your conference is going to start at 10 o'clock. But all the audience had actually been there since 9:30, 9:45 because they had to come beforehand. But don't take it on excuse that since your conference was from 10 o'clock, that's why you reached at 10 o'clock, that was perfectly fine. But your audience was there or had started coming from 9:30 onwards. So take a pause, appreciate them. Tell them that thank you, you have been waiting for me. And now we are going to start the conference. So always acknowledge people who have been waiting to meet you. This really works out to make the other person feel important about himself or herself. The another thing which is important is to give attention to everybody in the group. So if you're in a meeting, if there are a number of people in front of you on a round table, or if you're talking to 3 or 4 people inside a group, give equal attention to all the people inside the group. Right? Once you start putting equal attention to all the people start feeling important. Otherwise, what happens is that only the person to whom you're looking at feels that you're giving attention to him or her. The other person seems to be left out. So a good speaker always looks at each and every person inside the audience, no matter a cursory look, but a look is very important. So give attention to all the people who are there inside the group. Do not talk just by looking at a single person. This is very, very important to make the entire audience feel important about themselves. And feeling important is so very strong. It's one of the strongest traits in a human being. To feel important, to feel recognized. And this really helps out.